What's up, tribe? How you guys doing? New show alert. It's a mini series. If you guys followed my Dirty John series last season, this is like season 2 of Dirty John, but they're using a different person's story, and it's the Betty Broderick story. Um, I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with the Betty Broderick story. I remember now, if you like me and you like true crime and ID and all of that, I have been watching Snapped, the show that comes on Lifetime. I mean, not Lifetime. Oxygen. I've been watching Snap since damn near season 1, and we are in season 576, whatever, whatever. Right? I'm exaggerating, but it is like season 20 something. And I probably have seen every episode of Snap probably more than once, because when they had those marathons, I watched the marathons too. Betty Broderick's story was probably highlighted in the first season, because whenever you think about Snapped, is all about a woman scorned, right? 95% of the stories they do on Snapped are women that, for whatever reason, have killed their husbands, boyfriends, significant others, whatever. There are very few stories that are about a man, right? So Betty Broderick's story was highlighted, and it's a really famous story. I've seen versions of the Betty Broderick story, like as far as documentaries type stuff. I've seen a few of them. This is the first time they did make a movie out of it. That what's the girl that used to play that played Michael J. Fox's mom on played Elise Keaton on Family Ties. I want to say she played Betty Broderick in like a Lifetime movie years ago. So anyway, it's getting the Dirty John treatment. If you guys saw Dirty John and you enjoyed Dirty John, that's what it is. So, I'm not sure how many episodes it is, but we did episode 1 and 2 was tonight. So we had the Betty Broderick story. So if you don't know the story, I'm not gonna ruin it for you. I'm just letting you guys know that this is a very famous story. And for all of you women who thought you married that rich husband, doctor, lawyer, accountant, whatever, thought life was gonna be happily ever after, and your husband divorced you for a trophy wife and left you, this is the story. Okay, so we open up the show. We see Betty Broderick getting married. She's living in this house overlooking the water. It's got this beautiful view, and she's getting dressed, going to her makeup and everything. And we find out that she's on her way to the lawyer's office. Her and her husband. We start this story sort of almost at the end, like sort of in the middle, in media res, I believe it's called, in literary terms. And so her lawyer is telling her lawyer is like, Betty, look, this is how we should go about doing it. And she's talking to him about the house and how much it's been appraised at and how it should be higher. And he was like, listen, you agreed to the selling price. So what we found out is that she's on her way to meet with her husband and his lawyer so they could sign the papers to sell the house. Now, she ain't hearing it. They get to the lawyer's office and she refuses to get out the car. She refuses to go upstairs. We'll go upstairs. In her mind, she feels like if I don't sign the papers, this ain't gonna happen. And her lawyer is telling her, listen, I get it. I understand you're angry. I understand that you didn't want this to happen. But at the end of the day, we are where we are, and you need to pick your battles. So this might not be the battle you want to pick, because at the end of the day, you got to sell the house. You got that price you wanted. You set an asking price. He found a buyer for this price. You need to go ahead and sign the papers. Then he said, so anyways, he went upstairs. So he went upstairs and he was like, listen, okay, my client is downstairs. She's refusing to come in to the room, but we're going to get this done. So he ends up taking the paperwork, taking it back down to the car. And she's like, well, what did he say when I wouldn't come up? Well, what did he want? And she really thinks that she's going to get a reaction out of him that she ain't going to get. And he was like, he said, okay. Like, he was like, sign the papers. And she refuses to sign the papers. And she's like, well, what do you mean he refuses to sign the papers? And he was like, Betty, I told you, pick your battles. Like, this is going to happen. Like, this is a battle you're not going to win. So she refuses to sign the papers, and, the lawyer ends up taking her back home, and he tells her, he was like, Betty, I'm telling you, this ain't going to end well for you. Like, we got a long way to go with this divorce, and this just ain't going to end well. So we see that she's at the house, and we hear her talking. Her mom and her dad are there. She's got 2 boys, And we hear her talking, and her dad is telling her how bad the house is and how the house has just needs all this work done. And that was one of the things that that was part of the settlement, was that he was going to give her $20,000 towards getting the house fixed up. Now, here's what we've been able to. First of all, this takes place in like 1986, I think the year was, or 1989. It's the late 90s. I mean, late 80s. Did I say 90? 1980s. Okay, so $20,000 in the 1980s to fix up a house is significantly more. So it was a significant amount of money. So anyway, so we see that. So the phone rings, and her lawyer is telling her he sold the house. And she was like, what you mean he sold the house? Like, he needed my signature. He was like, nope. He went to court. He got some sort of emergency injunction, whatever. And they did it in your absence. Like, it was a 4-hour window. By the time and her lawyer lives in LA. This is taking place in like San Diego. The lawyer lives in LA. He was like, by the time I got notice, it was like a 4-hour window. I wouldn't have had enough time to fly down there or to get down there. And so it happened. He was like, I tried to tell you, like, so she immediately leaves out the house, leave her mama and her daddy at the house with the kids, tell my son, I'll be right back. And she takes the car and she drives over to the house, the new house where her husband is living. Come to find out, they got 2 older daughters. The daughters open up the door and say, Mom, you can't be here. You know it's a problem. And she was like, where's your father? They were like, he went to the dry cleaners, but you can't be here. So we realized that we have come in the middle. Like, there are already some court documents that have been taken care of. She's already been she already has a court a restraining order. She's not even supposed to be at the house. He pulls up, he tells her to leave, get away, you're not supposed to be here, don't make me call the police. So she ends up leaving. She goes over to the house that they just sold. Coral Gables, Coral Reef, whatever. One of them. Again, remember, this is the late 1980s. It's a 3-car garage and, real nice house, probably in a real nice neighborhood. You can see that people had Mercedes and stuff in the driveway. So you definitely know this is a nice neighborhood. She breaks into the house and she finds gasoline and she about to burn the house down, right? Then she stops and she starts remembering all the wonderful times that they had in that house. And so at that point, she decides, okay, I'm not going to burn the house down. She then gets back in her car, which is like a truck. She's got like a Bronco or something like that. But again, remember the 1980s version. She then drives over to his house and slams the front door with the car, honey. Baby. So of course he comes running out and he detains her and tells the girls to call the police. So he's got the daughters involved, whatever. The police show up and he tells the police, listen, I don't really want her to be arrested. I need y'all to take her to a psychiatric hospital. Like, there's clearly something wrong with her. She just ran the car to the front door. And he's like, I'm a doctor. And he said, well, I don't have admitting privileges. But if you tell me where y'all are going to take her, then, I'll sign whatever paperwork needs to be signed. So next thing we do, we see her talking to the doctor. And she's telling the doctor, listen, you can sit here till you blow in the face. You're not going to make me say anything I don't want to say. And so the doctor is like, well, what is really going on? Like, talk to me. And so we get a little bit more information when we find out that, she's just angry about what's going on and that, she feel like he's getting, taking advantage. She was like, I know you have to say whatever he wants you to say. Come to find out her husband is like the biggest malpractice attorney because he does have a medical degree, but he doesn't practice medicine. He practiced law. And he took his medical degree and became a malpractice attorney. And so she was like, his reputation precedes him. Like, everybody knows who he is. So if, he decides that you're not doing a good job and he sues you for malpractice, like, you're going to lose before you even go to court. Everybody knows who he is. And so I feel like there was like a little glimmer in the doctor's eyes when she said who her husband was. Like, yeah, I do know who that mug is, So then he ends up calling her. And he's talking all sweet and he's nice to her or whatever. And he's like, so what's it going to take? And she starts talking about what they need to do to get back together. He was like, no, what's it going to take for this divorce to go through? Like, I agreed to your terms. Like, you wanted 50% of the marital assets. You wanted XYZ a month. You wanted a lump sum, something like $18,000 lump sum. Again, remember, $18,000 in 1986, 1989. I'm not saying that's to live on the rest of your life money, but it is more than $18,000 today. But hell, I'll take $18,000 a day right now. Anyway, So she realizes that he's talking about the divorce and she ain't trying to hear it. So she ends up hanging up on him. Next thing you know, she was only on a 72-hour hold. So she ends up getting out the hospital. And she goes home. The house is empty. The kids aren't there. Her parents are gone. Her parents left as soon as he came and picked up the boys as soon as she went to the hospital, and her parents left thereafter. You get the impression that there's something there with the parents, especially between her and her mom, and I'm sure we're going to get there in later episodes. So then we see her shopping, honey, and she's telling her friends, what he did to her and how he had her arrested, and she was like, ain't nothing wrong with his house. It was just a little bit of a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And she, in her mind, she really thinks that they can work this out or whatever. Her friends are like, girl, like, he had you arrested, he had you put in the hospital, like, I don't know if it's what it is gonna be. Then the lawyer calls, and the lawyer is like, listen, the retainer, I just got a bill for $10,000 for structural damage to his house. She was like, wasn't no structural damage done. Like, it wasn't that serious. He was like, but what about my retainer? Like, I haven't been getting paid. And she was like, he's going to pay it, right? He said, yeah, but he hasn't paid me anything yet. And she said, but you're going to get, it's going to be paid for through the divorce. Like, it's all going to be taken care of. He was like, yeah, but I haven't gotten anything yet. And mind you, he is from Beverly Hills. So on top of his regular fee, he's flying back and forth to come and see her whenever they have court and stuff like that. So he brings the boys over, and he's talking all nice and sweet to her, and talking about, how did we get here, what is it we need to do. He was like, let's just do a do-over, let's start from the beginning. A lot has been done, a lot has been said, can we just start from the beginning? He was like, what's up with you not paying your lawyer? She was like, with what money? I don't have any money. Remember, you controlled all the money. You need to pay the lawyer. And he was like, listen, why don't you and the kids go away for the weekend? I'll pay for it. So he pays for them to go away to like some cabin up in Colorado. Now listen, in my mind, I was thinking he's setting her up for something. He was being too nice. He was switching gears too fast. I said he done something while she was gone to Colorado. I was like, he is doing something. He is putting some shit in place, because I just didn't trust it. But immediately nothing seemed to be, she came back and she's talking to her girlfriends again, the same lady she ran into in the grocery store, and she's talking to them, and she's talking about getting back together with him, and they are like, girl, like, I think you kind of need to accept reality, like, that's not gonna happen. And she started talking about all the different kids who all the different, marriages, like, that they had where they got back together, and she was like, see, y'all got back together, and this happened, and that happened, and they were like, yeah, but that, like, everybody's situation is different. Like, I think you really need to take this seriously. Like, I don't think he's trying to get back with you. So then she gets a letter from the husband, and he's basically saying, look, I'm getting ready to file for, it was some legal term that, this type of a divorce. In that, I'm asking for X, Y, and Z. He was like, I'm asking for, we split the marital assets. I'm asking for full custody of the kids. I'll give you visitation. I'm not going to pay you child support, but I will pay you a monthly spousal support. Like, at the end of the day, I just want this done. And it's going to happen one way or the other. So then she calls her lawyer, and her lawyer tells her, like, look, that's what this means, that the divorce is going to go through with or without your signature. These are the terms he's proposing, and you can counter it. But again, I tried to tell you, this is going to happen whether you want it to or not. It's just a matter of how nasty you want to make it and how long you want to draw the whole thing out. And so she's talking to her lawyer, and then he says, and I've been trying to call you. Like, I have called you a million times. I have sent you letters. I tried to tell you what's going on. And he was like, listen, you avoiding the issue is not going to stop the issue. And at this point, I haven't been paid. And he said, I don't have a problem. He said, I haven't been paid, so I just can't be your lawyer. And she said, well, wait a minute, you're going to get paid. He said, yeah. He said, but the bigger issue of that is you don't want this. And I can't represent somebody that's not going to listen to me. He said, every time I try to give you advice, every time I try to do something that's going to be in your best interest, you are counter to it. You undermine me. He was like, I can't work like this. I ain't getting paid. And you're not listening. He was like, I'm just not your lawyer anymore. I'm just got to recuse myself from this case. Mind you, she was already finding a lawyer from Beverly Hills because she had already said, she told her girlfriends, I had to go all the way to Beverly Hills to get a lawyer because nobody around here would deal with it because they're either all friends of his and they had to, they cited a conflict, or they don't want to deal with him because, they know who he is, his reputation. So she goes out and gets a job. And then she tries to meet with him again. And he was like, where's your lawyer? And she told him, she was like, the lawyer quit. Like, you wouldn't pay him. He said, okay, so you don't have an attorney? It's no need for us to really sit here and have a conversation. Like, I can't talk to you without an attorney. So we see her trying to call anybody, everybody. She going through the phone book. She was talking to some friends. She said, I'm at the point now where I'm just calling numbers off the billboard. Nobody will represent me. Now, at this point, I'm thinking people probably won't represent her more, not so much because of her husband, but because now she's created a reputation for herself. She's got restraining orders. She's not following and listening to the attorney. She done went to the psych ward. Like, nobody probably wants to deal with her case because she probably has a reputation for being messy at this point. She even asked one of her girlfriend's husband, and he was like, listen, I don't even practice that kind of law. That's not, no, it's not going to happen. Like, no, we can't, nope. And so she's just feeling real dejected, not even, just because, again, ultimately, she doesn't want the divorce. And so that is why she's just working so hard to fight it. She thinks that the more she fights, that she can stop it from happening and she can convince him that they could work this out. But ultimately, like, and her friends tried to tell her, hell, even the kids tried to tell her, like, Mom, like, this not gonna work. So the kids come over for their visit, and she finds out that the kids have been going to a therapist and been telling the therapist what's been going on. And of course, she immediately feels like he's taking them to the therapist so that he could use it against her in court, which he may or may not have been doing. But let's be clear, you are acting a little unstable. And the kids have been going through a lot in a short amount of time. So it may or may not have been the fact that, that you were unstable or whatever. It may have legitimately been about them needing some help. So we see her meeting with I guess it's a support group, and even a friend of hers at the support group was trying to explain to her, like, listen, have you found a lawyer yet? Like, have you been going to court? Like, what's going on? And she was like, well, I filed for an extension. And she was like, well, have you heard from anything? Like, have you heard from the judge? Like, and she said, no, I haven't heard from anything. I mean, I'm sure I'll hear something. And her friend told her, she was like, listen, just show up for court on your date anyway, just to make sure the judge got your paperwork. Because her friend know that ain't right. Her friend know that you just don't be filing papers and the judge be like, okay, you don't have an attorney, you're not being represented, your husband is a shark. Like, you need to get on your toes. And of course, again, she's just digging her head further in the sand. Next thing you know, we see her husband, the judge, and a couple of lawyers powwowing, talking, laughing, joking there in the judge's chambers. It's her court date. She not there. So the judge was like, well, y'all want to go ahead and get started? And they were like, yeah. She was like, well, was she given proper notice? Was she served? And they were like, yeah, she knows. He said, all right, well, her blatant disregard to the court, let's go forward. And he basically got whatever he wanted, and the divorce was granted, and he got everything he wanted. And I still think there are two sides to the story. Like, a part of me feels like, okay, he was still being somewhat fair with her, but the flip side is you wasn't being as fair as you could be. You know what I'm saying? But it's both sides. We're going, again, the rest of the series gets into, I don't know if it tells it from his perspective, but it's damn sure going to tell it from her perspective. So then we see her talking to, I don't know if was it a lawyer, or it might have been a lawyer. And she starts talking about how she shot her husband, and she said something about, she was speaking about her husband in present terms, and he was like, yeah, but your husband's dead, right? And she was like, oh yeah. She said, I just couldn't believe it. Like, I couldn't believe that one bullet killed him. Like, she was, and that's where episode 1 pretty much ended. So that's episode 1, season 1, Dirty John, the Betty Broderick story, y'all. So honey, I know Dirty John took us on a roller coaster, so let's see where this one's going to take us. Let me know what y'all think. Drop it in those comments. Peace.